Where'd you buy it from? From Depot?
Amazon.
Where?
Amazon.
Okay, well, if it doesn't fit, you can send it back.
Okay. Thank you. Let's
Sure.
keep that in.
Uh-oh. I don't want everybody to see me drinking. Get off camera until we finish this.
Like I said, that first commission is reinvested into the cost of the repairs. But if you're representing the seller, you're also getting that commission, as well as a listing commission on the second transaction. And if you find a buyer for that, you have the opportunity to really make 3 commissions. So I have an example of how an easy flip deal would work. Just because I like numbers, I think that would be helpful to see how it would work. So in my easy flip example, the property is listed for $600,000. Okay, well, let me be clear. We've purchased the property for $600,000. So like I said, your commission from representing us as the buyers would be $15,000. The total cost of improvement would be $80,000. So you would reinvest that $15,000 into the cost of improvements, and we would cover the rest, the remainder $65,000. Here we've incorporated 4 months of carrying costs, so a total investment of $685,000. So we have our platform of vetted vendors, they're licensed and insured, they come in, they do the work, the property is beautiful, it's ready to hit the market, you represent us on the listing side, it sells ultimately for $895,000. So for the listing commission, that's your 2.5% that you do get to net this transaction, as well as the profit share of the 50% of the profit, which is the $78,150. So that's how I got the total agent's commission, the commission from the listing side, in addition to the profit, for $100,525. Are there any questions so far about the process, how the numbers work?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Sure.
So how do you know that the property is going to be profitable? What about if when you get there, you have a foundation issue, so you have major issues that is going to cost more money? How do you find that out?
So that's actually what has been one of the trickiest parts of this, is identifying a property that would really work with the carrying costs, with the commissions. We're looking to see about a 15% profit margin of about 15%. And so I've had agents bring me properties, but the numbers just weren't quite there. So we would order an appraisal inspection. We would have, our vendors come out and inspect the property, et cetera, and hopefully be able to identify any issues before we close on the property and we're like stuck with a dud. We don't want to waste anybody's time or money. There's one other question.
Lauren, just as a follow-up, just to clarify, I think what Rosie was asking, should there be say that we find a property, we identify it, we believe there's a profit margin that's worth pursuing. Mm-hmm. You guys double check the numbers and you guys are happy with it. We pull the trigger, we buy this property, and then something unforeseen happens. We find out that actually there was a toxic spill on here 20 years ago, and zombies are being created in the basement. There's a foundation problem that no one knew about, and this problem, this house is sliding down the hill, and any minute it's gonna be like a snowboard and take out a couple of houses on the way down the hill. Whatever, there's a major problem that we don't know about. So my understanding is that in that situation, we're not, you guys assume the risk, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So at the end of the day, you at least still make the commission on the, hopefully one of the sales or the purchase.
Wait, hold on. Did you say that if there's a loss in the property, we still get to keep the listing commission when we sell it?
No, I was saying that hopefully you would have represented maybe the seller when we purchased the property, so you would have that commission at least.
Oh, wow. Just the fact that we're making any money off the fact that the investment is a complete dud and going in the toilet, right. It's amazing. So anyways.
So to answer yeah, no, not the listing commission, but if you were representing the seller when we purchased the property, before we knew about the zombies and the toxic spill and taking down the houses on the hill. But to answer your question, yes, we are assuming the risk. Even with the construction, we are assuming the risk, so.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What other tough, I guess the next question, well, let me see if anyone else, Tamara, I see you guys, your hand up. Do you want to ask your question?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Tamara.
Now?
Yes.
Yeah, good. You mentioned something about the buyer's commission, 15,000 going towards the improvement cost. Did I hear that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay,
So to clarify, we give up the buyer's commission on the initial purchase. We don't give it up, but it goes towards the investment. We, should there be a profit, we're gonna keep half that profit. So assuming, so it's,
Right.
we would get half of it back.
I wasn't quite finished with
Oh, sorry,
the
Tamara.
entire question. So is that relative? What if it's a $200,000 profit property and your commission is 3,000? Is there a minimum of that commission improvement cost that the agent needs to put towards the initial improvement cost? Or is it just whatever that commission is? If it's 15, if it's 30, if it's 100,000, is that the case? It's just
So that's a good question. Right now, first, as a minimum, we're looking at properties that are starting around 250,000. And then two, no, we're never going to come after you for more money. If it's a $300,000 property and the commission is, what would that be now? 7,500, then that's your investment into the cost of the repairs.
what if it's a $3 million property and your commission is significantly higher? Does that go towards the improvement cost as well? Or
So
just a portion of it?
Right now, we're capping it around 1.52 million. We're not going quite up to 3 million yet, just until we can kind of iron out all of the nuances of the program.
Okay.
But as a rule of thumb, and keeping in mind, this is a new program, so we're pretty flexible. Like, you would just give me the details to even get the conversation started. But as of right now, you would be investing your total commission
Okay.
into the cost of repairs.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Hey, Lauren?
Oh, hold on, David Asamanfar, you got your hand up.
Right. Hi, Lauren. Can you go through the underwriting process of the whole process? Let's say that we find a property, and then can you tell me exactly how you underwrite that?
Sure, absolutely. So right now, you identify the property. It can be off market. Maybe you have a seller that's looking to just get out kind of quickly.
Mhm.
You would send me the listing price, the estimated cost of repair, the estimated after repair value, and the address. And from there, I would kind of put it into my formula and my assumptions, including the carrying costs and the commissions and everything, and see how close to that 15% profit margin we could get. Things I've learned in the past week and a half from my manager that I did not necessarily know is that he's very particular about properties that are too close to the freeway or too close to a high school, or, zoned for an R3 where we would have to build on top of it to be profitable. He's fine with doing construction a fair amount of work, but he doesn't want to necessarily do like a tear down or build on top of anything. So the underwriting process is kind of fluctuating as we're receiving properties and we're reviewing properties, but those are kind of just the red flags that I've been told to stay away from.
And so you want the agents to come up with the repair value of the property.
Yeah, an estimate. Of course, no one knows what it's ultimately going to sell for, but if you have the comps to support it, I don't expect you all to be spot on with the construction cost or the repair cost either, but if we can get kind of a close number, we then have a platform of vendors who would do the bids and make a proposal.
Thank you.
So Lauren, just to follow up on what David was saying, so if we identify a property that's zoned, like what you're saying, zoned R3, because this has come up with us, oftentimes we identify a property in this class here, we're often looking and scouring, looking for investment properties. Sometimes we find one that if we were to change it from a 2-unit to a 3-unit, or find some way to change the use, not just cosmetic repair, but finding a way to change it so that it could repurpose it some, we can find profit by doing that.
Right.
Are you saying we could never increase the number of units, or is there, like, you don't want to, does it just depend on how extensive the construction would be to get there?
Correct. It's just, It depends on how extensive the construction would be. I'm not saying never, but as of right now, especially for our first few, we just are trying to lessen the amount of time that it's going to be off the market, lessen the construction time, you know, especially because things are so backed up already. We kind of don't want to have carrying costs for 7-8 months.
Right, right. So maybe if we identify the property, like say that maybe if the garage was converted, we know that, you know, we've got everything lined up, or we know if, with a converted garage, it might be much more valuable. Or if you went from a 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom, you know, the comps justify that it would, you know, something like that might be doable. But like you're saying, you know, building another unit on top of the garage and like, you know, a full-on construction project like that would probably be out of the realm. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I have 2 more questions. Who are the investors behind this program? Where are you located? Where is the headquarters? And the second question that I have, obviously this is only flip, but if you come across with a property that is wonderful, you do all the renovations and then you want to keep it, do you refinance and pay you guys, or how exactly that works?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first question.
The first question is, who are the investors behind this? Where is the headquarters? What is their background?
So, sure. So my company our headquarters are in Woodland Hills. We do have private investors. And so that's kind of where the money comes from. Sometimes we do finance properties as well. And then to answer your question in regards to if you really like the home and you want to keep it,
Yes.
are you saying you as the agent, not us, right? Because we wouldn't keep the property, but if you wanted to, you'd have the opportunity to buy it from us.
Well, you give us a very good price.
Well, everything is negotiable in real estate, so I would certainly see what I could do.
Got it.
Yeah.
Hey, Lauren,
Mhm.
question, how many properties have you done so far
With
this year? I mean, within 2021, and can you give us some examples, real life examples of how much was the property, what was it like, and what was the outcome?
So we did not launch Easy Flip until November of 2021. And as of right now, we've done 0. We would like to do one as soon as possible. But like I said, we just had some things come up where a property was too close to a major highway and my manager didn't feel like it would be a good investment, or the cost of the work is going to eat up into the profit and we're just breaking even, which is just not worth anyone's time or money. So that's kind of where we stand with things now.
David, we want you to bring a property to the table and be the first case study.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ray, for your confidence.
Now, you do have some competition, David, but I'm excited to see what everybody brings in. So.
I have a question, Lauren. So in terms of, if I start to send you emails or calling you and saying, hey, look at this, look at that, I'm gonna make you crazy. Because I don't know the how you call it, no restrictions, but what do you need? Like as a profile, so you can say this, you should not do this, maybe this, you know, like, I don't know, point a list of what you're looking for, instead of wasting time and trying to find something that it may work. Because I have already 2 or 3 properties in my head, but I know it can be a waste of time. So how are you gonna point that out or give us, you know, heads up in case of, you know, it may work? Still, I'm gonna ask you because this is new, but still to have a kind of a range of, you know, in price, and also maybe, I don't know, in everything, not just in price. I'm talking about everything.
Right, absolutely. That's a good point. I don't want to be crazy either.
Criteria, that's the word. What is the criteria?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So as of right now, single family homes are great, condos are great. We're trying to stick away from like anything where we have to deal with tenants, because that gets a little tricky. We don't want anything too close to a high school. Middle schools are fine because apparently they're safer and they have a good return on investment. Just we've seen in past performance.
But But are you gonna send us a documentation so Kelly Williams can have it? So
Yeah,
we
we're
can
working on it. We are working on it. So it's a good thing and a bad thing. So unfortunately, because the program is so new, I don't have a too much of a structure for it. We just are saying, okay, this may work, this doesn't work, this could work, but as I'm getting properties in, my manager is kind of whittling it down. And so I should have a document for you very shortly. We've been working on a frequently asked questions document, which I think I've covered actually most of the questions right now. But yeah, I should have some information for you shortly. But right now, I say just send over what you think would make sense. We're looking to see about 15%, like I said. So if you calculate the commissions, the cost of work, and then closing costs, and you think that, okay, this seems profitable, then send it my way. I'd be happy to look at it.
Okay, two another questions. You are just Los Angeles. I think I saw you before, but this is another type of program, I think. You went, I think in November, December last year.
Yeah, I travel all
No,
around.
but you did you did another presentation last time, and this is different.
Well, this is strictly Easy Flip. My other presentation is about our other programs, but this is strictly Easy Flip. So this
Easy
is
Flip.
right. This is the only program that we have that's tailored to agents.
Okay.
Everything else is for the client.
Okay, and you are a California only.
No, we're nationwide. So if you had a property that's in another state, yeah, I mean, you'd have to, of course, be licensed in that state to get the commission. But
It will help if I know somebody in Texas, and that is my friend, and I can refer you, and he will give me certain percentage. It can be working like that, kind of, no?
yeah,
Kind
I
of
mean,
weird
we're
because of the commission.
we don't have the geographical limitation of
No,
just,
but I have to work something with him later on. Okay, I have to think about that. Because if that person is going to refer you a property, they don't how I get paid. If he's going to invest his commission, you know what I mean? It's kind of confusing.
yeah, that would be something you'd have to iron out with him.
Luis,
Okay.
what I would recommend in that scenario is find like, say you wanted to flip a property in Texas and you identified a property or for whatever reason, I would find an agent in Texas, have some arrangement with them and then approach Lauren, would this be okay? We come up with an arrangement with another agent, we figure it out together, and then we approach you and say, hey, we're gonna work on this together, here's what we're gonna do. And then proceed going forward. But somebody needs to be licensed in that state to recoup that commission from the sales, what I'm hearing.
Exactly. Later on, I negotiate with him. Okay, great. Thank you.
Lauren, the repairs is a big piece of the investment once you acquire the property. So do we need to get a general contractor out there to give us a bid? Just in case there is a square footage to be added or walls to be tear down, because those are, I mean, definitely a lot more expensive than just floor and paint.
Right.
How do you want to see that? You say it doesn't have to be very specific, but at the same time, to get to the 15% number, especially in this market, it's kind of tricky.
Absolutely. So my manager actually has a background in construction, so he can pretty much make a fair estimate of the cost of repairs. And keep in mind, we also have our platform of licensed and vetted vendors, everything from GCs to plumbers, electricians, painters, etc. The same vendors that we use for pre-sale home prep, we would just source them to do the work for the Easy Flip.
But I'm saying for us to know if the deal makes sense or not, or if we actually have that 15% margin. A lot of us, I guess, don't have that background in, let's say, guess estimating the cost of repairs.
Right.
So, and that happens prior to getting to you and to them, for them to be able to take a look at it.
Right.
Is there a, do you have some of those contractors that will actually, take a look, or do we just need to do that ourselves through trade people or actually a general contractor?
I would say before we would send out our contractors, or before you would waste your potential money or time, the goal is for you to not spend any money out of pocket. That's our goal. So I would say just give me like the best estimate, 75,000, 100,000. From there, I take the details, my manager pulls it up on the MLS. He's able to see the pictures, kind of assess the situation and say, I think that they're underbidding this a little bit, it's closer to 120,000. And so he would make the determining factor of whether or not we're going to, move forward.
Practically, if you use the format that you just showed us on that sample, we should be able to just forward that to you with the listing, and that will be sort of like the deal analyzer.
Exactly. And then I have a little calculator where I input the numbers in, and I have my assumptions, like I said, with the carrying costs and the commissions and everything, and it'll spit out a little percentage at the bottom.
Okay.
Lauren, do we have any input into what repairs are done and what, choice of fits and fit, how much money to invest in the property? Do we, as the agent, do we have any input in those decisions, or are those solely the decision of Zoom Casa?
I mean, you definitely have some involvement, but the final say is going to come from us.
Fair enough.
But keeping in mind, we're super conservative and don't really like to spend money unnecessarily. So that's something to,
That was my concern is, just making sure that if we see a way of saving costs and we think like, hey, I don't think you really need to spend to get all new appliances. We could go with, we could repurpose the refrigerator that's there or whatever to save some extra, whatever, save wherever we can. It's nice to know that you guys can be open to some suggestions and ways to saving costs or ideas on how to go about it to be a little bit more collaborative, even though you guys have the final say, but we have input into how to make this work financially.
Of course, absolutely. Because keeping in mind, you would be knowing the market that we're in. You kind of know what's selling, what buyers are looking for more so than we do. We're not realtors. So, yeah.
Well, we know that, labor, everything is backed up. Materials are more expensive. And is this program new nationwide for you guys, or is this something that you guys been doing and you just bringing it to Keller Williams? And I work with some builders, but they have their own sort of warehouse and supply a lot of materials already sort of set aside for this type of work. What are you anticipating into shortage of materials and having to, spend more on carrying costs because of delays or even permits?
Right. So even though this particular program is new, our pilot program, which was pre-sale home prep, is about 4 years old. And that's a nationwide program. If you're familiar, it's when we'll come in and allow your client to make any improvements or renovations to the property before it hits the market with 100% of the cost deferred till closing. So that's how we're able to, pay the vendors directly per their pay schedule. We're later reimbursed when the property sells. So we do have a vast network of vendors. Right now, we're just launching this with KW Concierge. We're not launching Easy Flip with any other brokerages or anyone else. If you did have a property that was in another state, we'd be open to talk about it, but we're not expanding it that quickly yet. That was my one point. I lost my other point. Oh, we definitely welcome you to use your own preferred vendors. If you have a contractor or a painter or a plumber that you trust, we just need to check their license and insurance, make sure that, they have all of their required insurances, and then we're good. We can use them. We actually welcome that.
Hey, Lauren.
Yes.
Is there going to be a transparency of knowing for us to know what the cost is and how much the cost of capital is, how much you're charging for those costs of capital? Is it going to be like a schedule that shows exactly how you came up with that cost?
The carrying cost?
The carrying cost and also cost of the construction.
Yes, absolutely. It'll be very transparent.
It would need to be in order to split the profits, 50-50. You'd have to have that ability. Yeah.
And just as a rule of thumb, we're just a transparent company. Everything is itemized with the amount, and we love spreadsheets. And so, yes, absolutely.
As a follow-up question to that, I know when we do the preparing the home for sale program, Zoom Casa makes some of their profit on the discounts they get from the vendors.
Right.
I'm assuming that in this case that there would be no, Zoom Casa is not getting an additional side income off of discounts off of vendors, right? We're split, you know, you're transparent about the price you're paying. You're not getting any additional income that's outside of the deal. We're giving up our buyer side commission, and we're at the end of the day, we split the profit, right? According to that, right?
Yes, so with pre-sale home prep, the way we make our money is by factoring in our margins to the vendor cost. We're not going to charge ourselves more money or charge you more money. We're going to pay it at cost.
Yeah, just wanted to confirm that.
Yes.
Lorna, I have a question. Actually, all the questions everyone asked has been answered, so that's good. I crossed everything out. But the one that I have is in regards to when you get to before you get to the purchase price, okay, the actual offer. What happens if we get into multiple offers and bidding? At what point when counters come through, you know, because obviously the way it works is us as agents, we're representing you guys, we're representing Zoom Casa / Easy Flip as a buyer, correct?
Correct, yes.
So what happens if we get into multiple bidding, and then how far do we go? Let's say the asking price 600,000, you got five on the table, 5 offers, 6 1/4, 650, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm. That's another question that came up, and I haven't gotten a definite answer in terms of how hard we'd be willing to fight, how much over asking we'd be willing to pay. I can't imagine that it would be that much because, like I said, it's going to get to the point where it's going to be a wash and then it doesn't make sense. But so what we're actually looking for is
Off-market properties.
Off-market properties, absolutely. And if you have a relationship with the seller that you've already you have that rapport, you've already established the relationship, you know that they want to sell, maybe they need to sell very quickly, we can close very quickly, you know. I would definitely say off-market properties are the way to go though. I can get some clarity, I can speak to Lior and get some clarity about that as well.
I would imagine.
He's conservative, he's not gonna wanna, you know, go.
I figured that was gonna be off-market properties makes sense.
Yeah, I would imagine too that when it comes to negotiating and going, you know, how far would you go? It all just depends on, based on the calculations, at what point do we lose out and no longer have the 15% margin that we require?
Correct.
The minute we have 14%, 13%, 12%, it's no longer fitting in our guidelines and we have to bail out on the deal, right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of properties to find one. That is the one thing that I know about doing this. I dealt with it in the past, and it's just, you know, just like, you know, when you cold call, you know, it's what it takes a lot of calls to get the one. So you know, we just need to make sure that we stay on task and looking at the numbers and figuring out that return is there. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time.
Lauren, I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely, this is probably going to be for off-market properties. That makes the most sense, especially in this crazy market. You know, trying to get involved in an overbid. What do you anticipate? Because then at that point, if we find a homeowner that has expressed some interest on giving consideration to it, timing is paramount. You know, if you're able to, what do you anticipate when we end up providing you the worksheet and our worksheet makes sense, okay?
Mm-hmm.
From the time that, you know, who's the one who actually physically goes out to the property? And do they go out to the property prior to writing up a purchase agreement? Do you have that's question one. Question two, do you have your own purchase agreement, or is the purchase agreement on the CAR form? Okay. And what do you anticipate your typical closing window to be? You know, 10 days, 14 days?
Right. So that actually came up at the retreat 2 weeks ago, was how quickly can we get the offer, you know, written up after we get the okay. And verbatim, my manager's answer was as quickly as the agent can write it. So once the numbers look good, I run it up the ladder to him. He likes it, he approves, and he gives the permission to write the offer up. I mean, I come back to you and say, okay, we're good to write the offer. After we get the appraisal and inspection back, we can close in as little as 7 days. That's our typical timeline.
Would the offer end up being, would there be any contingencies in the offer, such as inspection and appraisal?
So there is an appraisal contingency. There's no loan contingency. I'm not sure about the inspection contingency.
That's a big one. Is there a way that you'd be able to find out? Or let me ask you this, prior to writing an offer, can your manager, whoever is in charge, physically visit the property first, or it's strictly based on the model of that we have to end up writing the offer contingent on an inspection? And do you have your own inspectors, or is it still then the general home inspection companies that we then hire?
I should have an answer for you shortly. I just shot him a message. So hopefully before the call is over, I'll be able to answer that question for you.
Dealing with the inspection?
Yes, the inspection contingency, and as well as who actually comes out and does the inspection.
Okay.
And part of my lack of knowledge, like I said, we haven't had one yet. So I haven't gone through the process from start to finish yet. So I'm learning with you.
Right. I'm just trying to forecast, like, if all of a sudden we spoke to a potential homeowner this evening and because just like any other, let's call them home flippers, the home flippers at that point, they typically, will either inspect the property prior to having you write up an offer, or, give me 1 day, okay, to be able to physically, go crawl the property and climb on top of the roof, that type of thing. And then they'll remove their inspection contingency. And
So yes, we do submit the offer with an inspection contingency.
So if we can find out how long that window is, because that is a major selling point to prospective, homeowners, in that way. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. He's typing. So as soon as he gets back to me, I'll definitely share with you.
Excellent.
And I take it that the inspection in this situation, it will be for something major, any type of foundation issue that can actually get into the profits. But everything else, I mean, it is.
Right. I would agree.
That's all right. Yeah.
Makes sense.
I'm gonna-
Sorry. maybe I
Hey,
missed-
hey, Lauren, the question was asking, do you use the standard CAR contract, or do you have a different contract? If you could ask him that as well.
Yeah, we use the standard residential purchase agreement.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
Yeah, those are great questions, Steve. Lauren, I want to revisit something that you had talked about earlier. So again, this program is new. You guys are launching here with KW Concierge. Say we find a property in, I don't know, say Henderson, Nevada, right? Henderson, Nevada is like 4 or 5 hours away. We find a property there, we identify it, we say, oh, this property you could flip. I know you guys said the program is nationwide. That's not the restriction, but do you guys have a network of vendors, contractors, the people we would need to do those repairs out there? Or would we need to, because my concern was being like, right now, it's hard to, if you guys already had a network of contractors and subs that you guys have relationships with, that we can get good prices with, because I know that you guys have an established relationship with them, you guys can get great prices on there. Do you have those relationships with people like around the country, or is it just in the LA area?
No, so like I said, we're a nationwide company and we purchase properties all over the country daily, with our Ford program especially. So we don't necessarily go out to every property that we purchase. We trust the agents that they would ideally have seen the property. They're not going to have us all invest in a complete and total, mess. And so, but to answer your question with the home inspection, yeah, we have project managers, or we would send a general contractor on our behalf to go out and do the inspection, a thorough inspection of the property.
Yeah, great.
Awesome.
And then I also just got a little bit of clarity in terms of the window, that if it's an amazing deal with no inspection contingency, they won't find a way to make it work after factoring the worst case scenario.
Got
So flexibility, like I said, is the running theme here.
That's great. So yeah, if we're under the gun time-wise, we could get it done without having an inspection up front. But I imagine ideally, like if we have an off-market property, then we have the luxury of being able to bring in an inspector before writing up the offer, which would make everything a lot more streamlined.
Right.
Got it. So that's good. So basically, like, some of this there's some flexibility, and it just depends. Some of this is going to be case by case basis. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Got it.
And Lauren, would you say that on a rule of thumb, would you say you would be interested in property that's 70% of the ARV?
Sorry, say that one more time, please.
As far as flipping, the price of the property usually should be between 65 to 70% of the ARV.
Yes, correct.
Is that would you recommend to use that as a rule of thumb?
Yes, so for the numbers that I've been seeing, if the purchase price is like 699 and it's $100,000 worth of repair, it would need to go for like 1.1 for us to hit that sweet spot.
Okay. So that's just a basic rule of thumb that you use just to get an idea if this may or may not work. So if it's like 85%, it's not going to work. So 80% is not going to work. So 65 to 70%. If that is the case, then it may work.
It may work, especially it just taking into consideration the timeline for construction, because that's also going to increase our carrying costs. But that's a great start.
Right. So just to make it easy, because a lot of agents like me may not have the ability to estimate and say, okay, this is how much it's going to cost to do the renovation. But we can tell, okay, if this property was in such a condition, this is how much the market value would be. Off of that, we can say, okay, let's say, for example, if the value is $1 million after, if it's a good property, then we can say, okay, if it's $700,000, it's worth getting into it. Is that correct?
657, yes. That's correct. That's just based on the average of the numbers that I've been running for the past 3 days. They've all been, the purchase price was a little too high. The cost of repairs were a little too high for the ARV, but had they been $75,000, $100,000 lower, it would have worked. So.
Yeah, because it's just, this thing has to be simple. Otherwise, if it's complicated, it's not going to work. And, you have to make things simple for the agents to say, okay, there's certain parameters that we can figure out. Okay, what is the market value if it's in very good condition, or if it's that? And based on that simplicity, we can make a assumption. Okay, this may or may not work. So, as opposed to going into the carrying cost and cost of construction and all that, so that 30% would really include all the construction costs and the carrying cost and the profit.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. My math was a little more complex than that, but then we ended up getting to about the same number. So I like your method, and I'll definitely be working with my manager, like I said, to get a document that's like a one sheet about the program that has criteria, what we are looking for, what we just don't even waste your time of trying to bring, So I should have that for you shortly. Unfortunately, though, to get to that point, we've had to have properties brought to us and then figure it out and figure out that it's not going to work. Exactly.
Thank you.
One thing to keep in mind, and like Gary Keller says, you make the money when you acquire it. And in this case, when you acquire the property at the price that you acquire it, is the key. So pricing is going to be very important when you buy.
Absolutely. What's the anticipated average holding time on a project you guys will be looking at? Probably average, what, 3 maybe 4 months typically?
Right.
Is that kind of what you're kind of gearing for?
My assumptions are set at 4 months. So if it's less than that, then that's great. But as of right now, we're not trying to see anything more than that. Okay.
And dealing with, I know David just talked about using kind of a rule of thumb as opposed to trying to determine construction costs. I know, for instance, when I walk into a house, a fixer, when I'm using a number for fix up, I'm thinking retail construction price. Between remodel kitchen, remodel baths, windows, landscape, flooring, the whole bit. I'm always thinking retail costs. So, if I'm working with, as an example, if I'm working with an investor, he goes, well, Steve, what do you think this is going to cost? And, I'll look at it and I'll start itemizing out kind of what I think from a retail standpoint, and I may come to a number of, 130, 140,000 retail. And I said, look, you're going to be competing against, other investors who also have their own construction company. And, they're able to do the same $140,000 worth of work at their cost is now sitting around, my guess is, 90 to 100,000. Okay. Which one are you? Is Easy Casa then, Easy Flip then working on based on their own construction, their own construction company numbers, or is it still retail numbers, that you guys are basing it on?
So that's a good question. The beauty of us having a network of preferred vendors is that we use them often. We bring them a lot of business, and so they do tend to give us rebates. So I would go for us being the latter. Like I said, my manager doesn't believe in overspending or even, spending more than necessary for the work to get done.
All right. So if we factored it at retail and you guys get it even better, it just makes the deal even sweeter.
Right. I mean, I like to be conservative with numbers, and then then be pleasantly surprised when, we net more. I'd rather, not overpromise and underdeliver. That's just the way that my mind works.
Sure.
So yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, sure, Steve.
I just want to chime in, and this is a little off the topic, but I know when I was flipping properties in Carolina, just working as a realtor, there was two contractors, and I gave them so much business. Everything that I had that was repaired. We did a lot of actual repairing, not just getting credit before closing, but we did a lot of repairing before closing. And so I would funnel a lot of business towards these people who bought houses and needed repairs or whatnot. And in return, they would help me out. I had a couple guys who would literally, when I was looking at property, they would hop in the car and meet me there and tour it, and we would walk it together. And I would, and they would give me pricing. We would walk around. He'd be like, kitchen, we're talking $20,000, and give me pricing as we went. Incredibly valuable, and I valued it so much. And I would give him all my business that I could. Everything I could, I'd funnel his way. And part of what I'm saying is just encourage all of us to, you want to develop those relationships as much as you can, because, granted, Easy Flip has got their own contractors, and that's great. But if you can have somebody, I mean, even if they can just look at it online on the MLS and look at all the photos, or you call them while you're doing what do you call it, on your phone, Zoom or FaceTime, just FaceTime walking around the house. They can oftentimes give you, hey, they're not going to hold you to it, but they give you a ballpark, and that's so helpful in scenarios like this. So I encourage you guys to develop those relationships as best you can, and if you find them, treat them like gold, because it's such a great hand-in-hand relationship if you can find it.
Lauren, do you also happen to have a sample contract that you guys will operate with that details the points out of how the partnership would work?
That's a good question. I can reach out to my legal team and definitely get a sample addendum.
Okay.
Hey, Lauren.
Would it be in a separate addendum or a separate contract? Because I would think, it would be it would be a separate contract, because we're not, as agents, we're not party to the purchase. Okay, we're not a principal at that point. Right. Or shall we say, are we a principal?
No.
Okay.
Right.
Just want to clarify.
That's how you're able to, not have to be responsible if.
Right. Okay.
Are you not party to the contract? Yeah.
Right. So we have the agency relationship representing on the purchase of the property, but then we then have the separate agreement then between us then as the listing agent, as the listing office, as well as then the profit share, of the profits.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
The responsibility that we have is to disclose to the seller that we do have an interest.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yeah, right. So I know Simon had mentioned that earlier, but just exactly what Aaron said, please, everybody, if you get into this situation, just know that you will have to disclose that you are not only an agent, but you have a vested interest in the property.
Hey, Lauren, I know that this Easy Flip is kind of new. There's no history behind it, but with the ones that you already had within the past 4 years, within the past 6 months or so, how has the supply chain and the employee shortage affected your ability to flip and to be profitable?
So just to be clear, our past 4 years specifically aren't flipping. It's more so the construction, refreshing, deferred maintenance for your client's home before it hits the market. But so I haven't had too many issues. The one time that I was 3 weeks, I had a forward deal that was 3 weeks late was because it was Christmas and New Year's Eve. Christmas Eve and, you know, that whole like weird week. So we did lose some time there. I do have team members that work in, you know, Connecticut and Massachusetts, and they're having a harder time than I am, but we have the luxury of the weather here. So I haven't had too many issues. And my project managers are very communicative. If a contractor is not available there or for 2 months out, then they'll source another contractor who is, you know, available sooner. We don't want to have the property on our balance sheet any longer than necessary. We don't make our money back until the property sells. So our interests are all aligned in that manner.
So I got one last one, is when we go through the process, would you be the point of contact, or would it be your manager or a project manager?
So to get the process started?
No, during the process, let's say the property
During the process,
is
yes.
identified and we're in the works, I mean, we're going through the flow.
Mhm.
Be the contact as far as.
So at that point, right after we purchase the property, if we're like in the construction phase, at that point, you will have a project manager that's going to oversee the project from start to finish. And they would be your point of contact. They're the ones that are in direct contact with the vendors, scheduling the payments, etc. And they're an employee of Zoom Casa as well. And if you need me to step in as your account executive, I'm more than happy to.
I just want to know who to yell at.
No yelling, no yelling. It's gonna be great. We have to think positively.
First.
You know, the one thing I
Lauren,
wanted to,
Go ahead, Aaron.
sorry, the one thing I wanted to share is that a good way to figure out what the cost of repairs and construction is that everything gets measured by square foot. So if you can do some research or actually talk to some of your contacts of contractors, and you can actually pretty much get an idea of what per square foot would be to replace flooring, to replace, you know, even painting. I mean, a lot of stuff gets done that way. And that would be a good way to start getting used to for measuring, you know, project one to any size of project.
That's at least, I would agree with you on that.
Yeah, and my project managers, because that's what they do all day, they probably have a much better idea of the cost of repairing the flooring, or, you know, how much it costs to redo cabinets in a kitchen. I personally just don't deal with that side of it, but that's what they do all day long. So they would have a much better idea. They would be the ones you would be in contact with at that point.
I'm sure there's an app for that.
I hope so. When you find out, please let me know. Yeah. And so, like I said, I've been speaking with my manager throughout the course of this call. We are working on getting a one sheet, like I said, with more information. But in the meantime, just please feel free to send things my way if the numbers make sense. And I will put it in my spreadsheet and run it up to my manager if the numbers look good.
Can you provide us with your email and phone number, all your contact info?
Yeah, there's my.
Put it in the chat bar.
Thank you.
Hey guys, I think we need to wrap it up here. I've got another appointment I got to run to at 4 o'clock. But any last question, anything before we wrap it up?
I have one more question. So how do you handle when you have a limited in building materials, or the materials are going up? You know, every so often, do you take that in consideration on your equation? When you have materials issues, or the availability of the building materials that we are having right now, so do you take that in your equation?
The cost of construction, you mean the increased cost of construction, the lack of supplies, et cetera?
Yes.
Yeah.
As best we can, yes. Like I said, my manager has a construction background, so he's actually the one who, when I would present a property, he said, this may be a little low for the scope of work. It's actually more like this number. So that's who I defer to.
Good stuff. Well, this was, I mean,
Thank you.
I don't know how everybody else, but I thought this was just amazing, and I feel like I got to know the program really well. I'm excited about it. I think it's going to open up a lot of doors for all of us, especially people who attend this group regularly. We're always looking for properties and stuff. So yeah, thank you, Lauren. I know this won't be the last time we talk, but thank you so much for spending an hour with us. For any of you guys, we'll make this video available so you can go back and review it. If you have, if you think of something that remember was answered and you need to get it clarified, this video, we'll make sure we have it up. And yeah, Lauren, thank you so much. And thanks to a lot of you guys for showing up to this. That was wonderful.
Thanks for having me. And just when I get that one sheet, that document, which I am expecting relatively soon, if not tomorrow, early next week, do I just send that to you and you can disperse it to your agents?
That'd be wonderful. Yeah, just send it to me or Ray, or both, and we'll distribute it. We've got for those of you guys who don't know, there's a Facebook group that corresponds to this group that meets up every week, working on wealth. So there's a Facebook group. If you want, ask about it, and I'll tell you how to. So we'll post it on there, but then I'll also talk about it at a team meeting and make sure that we distribute it that way as well.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you so much for your time. Hope to work with you all soon.
Thank you, Lauren.
Bye,
Thank
Lauren.
you.
Bye, everybody. That was
Thank
wonderful.
you.
Thanks,
See
guys.
you guys all soon.
Okay, that was good meeting. Funny.
How do they find the link to the recorded?
That's a